Welcome to Stormcraft, the podcast hosted by an advertising agency taking a look into the world of industry creatives. Join us as we discuss unique topics with brilliant individuals. My name is Alex. I'm the Chief Creative Director at Structure, and with me I have Carlos, who is our lead strategist, and he is also our web designer and developer. And then we also have, as a guest today, we have our one and only Sam Pappagallo, who is our sound tech, our sound engineer. He's a composer, does a lot of different things. He owns his own studio. So without further ado, quick introduction, I think, would be,
sure.
If you just kind of explain what you do and how long you've been doing it.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me on the show and podcast, whatever you want to call it, classified as. I'm excited to be here. Always excited to talk about sound, which is something I'm super passionate about. I do it for a living. Love it enough.
And awesome at it.
Thank you. I own my own company. It's called Screaming Parrot Studios, based in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. And I've been doing professional sound for roughly 10 years now. Started off in the music industry, doing live production with some smaller scale shows and festivals. Then that went into studio sound, working for bands. And then it expanded into doing location sound for with picture and doing commercials and small short films and some full-length features as well. But all of it still has the same principles. And also, I don't think you know, I worked with a company developing a software where sound was involved with that. It was on a legal standpoint, but that is as much as I can tell you.
I was going to say that is a new
software audio. Yeah, I kind of forgot about it until right in this moment. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I did that as well.
That's awesome.
So that was a cool project. So if we want to talk about the software aspect of sound, we definitely can. But let's take it away. Let's see where this goes.
Yeah,
ask me some questions.
And you obviously we've worked together on multiple projects. So. We've done work for Microsoft together. We've worked on commercials together, and just to kind of see you work as somebody who doesn't do sound professionally, I'm happy to admit that I am probably one of the least knowledgeable people when it comes to sound. So I know the importance behind it. I know kind of where it needs to go and when to implement it, but to actually come up with the best solutions, the best setups, the best types on the fly, that obviously takes a lot of talent. It takes a lot of just experience in the past, and so it's awesome to see you do what you do. And obviously, as an agency, we have the basically the opportunity to bring you on board different jobs as they come in, if we need that sort of thing. So, and I think to anybody who's watching this or listening to this, if you are in a position where you're a filmmaker, a videographer, and this is another thing we can get into later on, but you have to have sound. And, I think what I see as a filmmaker myself is that it's one of the last things on our list. It's something that often gets neglected. I'm guilty of this myself, where we'll work out all the right lighting, all the the best types of lenses and cameras, and but audio tends to kind of fall by the wayside. And I would say it's 50, if not 60% of a good finished video product. So, if the sound isn't good, if you're not working with people or have the know-how yourself, then it's just factual that your project is suffering to a degree. If you're just using like a built-in, mics that are on cameras and whatnot, it definitely will suffer. So having that knowledge and knowing the right people I highly encourage people to find someone like Sam who they're able to do this kind of work. They're able to get onto a set, and you can focus on what you're good at and just let people who know about the audio do their thing. So,
yes.
And I'm sure you see that a lot.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Couple things you did say. Yeah, audio is more than half the picture, or at least half.
Yeah.
And people only hear sound one way. There's no like real different variations of sound. Sound comes out, it goes in your head, you process it, that's it. Everyone hears it almost the exact same way. With picture, you can shoot at different angles, you have different lighting, you can get creative with shadows, you get creative with bounces. You can't do that with audio. It is what it is, and if you don't have the know-how to get you there, your audio is going to suffer. And then when people visually see something that looks amazing and then the audio comes in, it's like, oh, that doesn't sound right.
Sounds off.
Like, it sounds off.
Yeah.
But you might not be able to tell why, but you're going to know it sounds off. You're going to hear that more than you're going to hear things about picture, which makes my job even more like intense. Like, it takes a lot of focus, and you really have to make sure you're on point every single time. With like post-production, cleaning up audio, it sometimes is on the easier side than doing some color correction and that type of stuff in post. Could be easier if it's recorded cleanly. If you have someone talking in the background, like, it's there. And it's not like, not all the time where you can just, yell at somebody, hey, you're in the shot, take a step that way. If someone's phone pings in the back, you have no control of that phone call coming in unless you prep beforehand, like put your phone on airplane mode.
Yeah, it's a lot of just prep.
It's a lot of mental things. And the irony of all of that is if you're on set, like on a larger scale set, people think that sound guys don't do anything. And then we'll sit in a chair. We'll either be sitting in a chair or like in front of a bunch of gear, looking at little lights jump around, or we're just kind of standing in the background while everyone's moving cameras and moving light fixtures and putting talent where they need to be, and I'm just kind of standing there like on my phone because I'm not. There's nothing I need to do in that moment. So it's like, all right, this guy's lazy. He's not doing anything. But no, there's a lot of mental things going on in my head. Like, while you're moving cameras around, I'm like, okay, let's see. The boom needs to go over top somehow. Let's make sure that there's no shadow that's going to hit. Where's this light going to be placed? Where's the camera going to go? Is it going to stay at one spot, or is it going to move? Do I need to move with the DP and make sure I'm not getting in his way? Like, what's the path? Like, there's so many little things, but I don't need to physically show that. So it's a whole mental game. You have to be focused from start to finish. But
how do you prep for something like that? Is that something that you have a conversation with other people on set beforehand, or do you guys do like a dry run in practice? Because I'm complete novice. I don't know anything about this world.
Sure. You can prep a little bit beforehand. Usually what I do when I first walk into a room for the first time, and like, I'll determine, like, okay, is it a closed set or is it kind of an open set? In a sense, meaning, is it going to be totally silent, or are there other people around doing daily life things? Sure. Are we inside? Are we outside?
Gotcha.
Do that, and then I'll take a quick survey of the ambience. Like, is there an HVAC system running? Is there technical equipment in the background that needs to be turned off, like such as fans? You want to get that when it's dead silent, right in the beginning, especially with commercial work. Lately, I've been doing some shoots with some car dealerships, and when their HVAC kicks on, it's very loud, and I'll go to someone up at the front desk and be like, hey, can we turn this off? Sometimes like, yeah, it's a thermostat on the wall, or sometimes like, no, we need to call facilities, and it takes them 20 minutes to come in to turn it off. So that's something you got to get right out of the way in the very beginning. And then like, that's just initial mental prep, just walking right in before I touch any equipment or anything. You want to get it as quiet as possible right from the get-go. And then picking the equipment, that's a whole, or like which mics to use is a little bit of a different story. Because do you want to hide a mic? Do you want them to be seen? Like in this situation, I'm wearing a lav right now. I don't know if you can really see it on the camera because go figure, I'm wearing black and the mic is black. It's right here.
I was gonna say you're doing a very good job of making it blend in.
It is right here. I have a pack. I have a cable coming in and a pack in my pocket here, just for a lavalier microphone. Nothing too crazy, as I almost knock it right off of my jacket. Nothing too crazy. So if you like watch the news or whatever, sometimes you'll see like a little mic kind of in the middle of the chest.
Sure. I think it's something that people are kind of okay with, like they're familiar. If they see it on TV, for example, it's not like
like
an odd thing, right?
Broadcast, it's kind of there, and it's like, all right, we need to have it. There is sometimes you actually see two on people. Yeah. That's in case if one goes down, you have another. You have one as a backup. So they'll be wearing 2 packs, 2 mics, because it's live. You don't want to have to stop a live show,
right?
And because of a technical issue, you never want to have that happen. But on film sets, you don't want to see any mic rigging or anything like that. So that's the next step is what type of scene are we shooting, and what's the person wearing? Okay. Because you have to hide it. When you hide mics under clothing, you're going to hear all kinds of rustle and unwanted noises. So then you have to combat that, and that's always the biggest challenge.
Have you heard of? I just saw this the other day. And it might be a bullcrap thing, but somebody had done an article about like how if you use a paper clip, I'm sure you've heard of this, where it's like a paper clip, and I guess the loop at the end, if you bend it 90 degrees, it becomes like a guard for your lab. So if you have it, in here, and just because of that thing where you can set it up, and if you're in a rush, you're not even thinking of it, like what's it going to sound like with their clothing. And then it ends up, you get this constant like rustling sound because of that. Yeah. It's easy to almost overlook that if you're in a rush or, up against the wall.
Yeah, that's always the weirdest thing. But yeah, that trick does work if you're it's like a DIY thing, how to budge on the fly. Because you want to create as much of an air gap around the capsule of the mic as possible without it touching anything and without it bulging out of the shirt or clothing or wherever. A lot of like fun, like quick. We're gonna touch on this super fast.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like hiding lavs. Like with what I'm wearing, if I were to hide a lav, I have a t-shirt on, and I have this jacket. Sometimes, if I'm never gonna see the back of the person, I would take the lav and run it, literally expose it down the back of the shirt, of the jacket, and tuck it underneath the collar here, and let the collar kind of sit, and the mic will kind of sit right in this. So at least it's got an air pocket around it. It's not going to really touch the clothing, and it'll move with the clothing and kind of breathe, which is nice. Now something like how you're wearing, Alex, you have buttons all the way up. So I would go in between your second and third button, kind of around here, tape the mic facing this way, so it's actually outside of the clothing but still fully hidden, and then run the cable down and the pack behind you.
Rather than closer to the top.
Because the more close to the top you go, you're going to get more of the natural movement, like the muscle movements of your body.
And see, that's something I would never even think. I'd think more like, does it get bassier or something?
It does.
But I wouldn't even be. I'd be thinking about that, and I wouldn't even be thinking about, a whole different.
That's a natural phenomenon. Proximity effect is what it's called. The closer you're going to get to something, the more low end you're going to get. That reigns true more with lavs and men than it does with women, because normally they're not talking with a tone that's more sitting in their throat. It's more kind of sitting in their chest as they talk. So going down to just simple basics of sound, of where it's basically a vibration moving through a medium. So our vocal cords are vibrating, and the air is passing through. Air will come out of our nose, air will come out of our mouth, and that's just kind of the simple movement of just the actual vibrations of the sound itself. I'm not going to get into it because that's going to get way too complicated, way too quick.
That's good though. It's good to know.
So when you have a mic like this, we're going to use this as an example. I don't know over the live if you're going to hear it, but if for the recording, for the archive of it. So if I pull this mic all the way down to here, you're not going to hear a lot of my chest or a lot of my throat because it's not really there. But as I start moving this up and start talking more and more and more, you're going to start hearing my chest and hearing my throat more. And all of a sudden, it's going to sound very cupped almost. Now, at this point, you're just going to hear a lot of rumble. You're not going to hear the breathiness coming out of my mouth or that higher end spectrum of stuff. You're just going to hear essentially.
Up, right.
You're essentially just going to hear a lot of this. You're going to hear that sound because you're not getting the definition that's coming out up here. So there's a lot of moving parts, literally on like for. I don't want to breathe right in that. For like the human like actual muscle anatomy, I guess, if that's the proper term of the sound. So that also determines where the mic gets placed.
Yeah, it's very interesting, especially and I mean you're just touching base primarily on the human voice and in relation with labs, but like there's different types of audio that gets applied as far as where microphones go. For there's obviously overhead. There can be I mean if people watch football, they have I don't even know what they call them where it's in those. Things that
like those big plastic.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
You'll see like all these different capture devices and angles and things, and it's quite interesting what you can pick up, what different tones you could pick up, where depending on what type of mic it is, where it is, just the placement. There's so many different aspects that go into it. With this being a good example for people who can see this, we have a few different types of microphones in different areas that are set up very differently, and I'm sure each one has a very unique sound to it. Not only the mic itself, but how far each of us are from that mic. So it's very interesting to me to how that works, and again to like think on the fly. That's something I'm not able to do to save my life.
And the thing that really sets sound people apart, mentality-wise, I'm not talking like talent or any equipment. I'm not talking anything like that. You need to think the exact opposite of like what someone on camera or with lighting would do. You want to, because it's easy to put a mic up in front of something and grab sound. The difficult thing is how to not grab everything else. So that's the mentality you have to go into. It's like, okay, I'm at the source, like I have the mic where it needs to be. So like let's just say I'm holding a handheld mic, all right? And we have traffic noise behind me, I'm outside doing a news report, and there's wind coming through. But you can still hear the person talking, but it's how do I get rid of everything else?
Right.
So it's like, do I turn the person to have their body block the traffic to reduce that? Put a wind thing over top of it to reduce wind noise? Like that's what you have to think about, is getting rid of everything else. Where from camera perspective is like, all right, let's get it focused on this person, and then what do we want to do with the background? How do we want to manipulate the background to enhance the foreground? And is that with lighting? Like it's literally the opposite. And that's a very weird mentality to have.
And I think that kind of hits on why people like myself and other cinematographers and filmmakers, why we have such a hard time with getting sound right. And we tend to lean more towards the post side of it rather than the on-set side of it, because we're thinking in that mindset of everything has to be in the shot. So how can we manipulate it to make it look appealing, rather than okay, I'm trying to isolate something and how do I make that sound exactly how I need it to sound, and everything else can kind of fall away. It's a very different mindset, and if you're thinking one way, it's very hard to instantly kind of flip around and now think a totally different way.
And sometimes removing things that are natural is extremely difficult. But the thing that's nice about it is there's only one, maybe two ways to kind of get rid of it. It's not like there's a ton of different really rules that apply. Like you don't really have to like cheat anything, like cheat a camera angle or like cheat a desk in, or have them move the set slightly to kind of make it feel like the same angle. And then there's certain, I don't know, I'm not a camera guy, but like certain rules, like you can't cross lanes or whatever.
Right,
like,
with 100-degree rules and all that.
I don't think like that. I can't think like that. It's
you have to go wherever you have to go.
If like that shot doesn't feel right, I don't know why. But like there's not really a ton of those types of rules. It's almost like it's very mathematic. Like 1 + 1 is 2. Why? Kind of just is, but there's no way around it. You just have to take those steps and just make it happen.
So I have a question for you.
It's really weird.
Shoot. So with sound recording, in your opinion, is it more art than science, or more science than art, or is it a mixture of both?
Definitely a mixture of both.
Okay.
It's definitely a science. Oh, it's 100% a science. But it becomes an art form once you learn the sciences of it. Because with sound recording, there's a potential for a lot of creativity.
Sure.
And especially with like sound design and post. Like if you're on set and you're in a quiet room and there's supposed to be sounds of like a war outside, like are you going to try to make that war happen for real, or are you going to try to build it in post? Then you have to have the sciences. I'm sorry, I just got a phone call. I'm distracting for a second. The science of it, though, it's like you have to know what sounds to put outside. Like you can go online and download people people shooting guns and people yelling and stuff, but to blend it into the picture, it's like, okay, well, where are the people at? Are they outside and the war is happening right there? Are the windows open or closed? Are they broken? Like, how is the sound gonna be? Is it gonna feel like it's muffled? Is it gonna feel really defined? That's where the art form comes in, because you know the sciences of it. And that's where you can really get creative, and that's where it's fun. You have to know basics before you can kind of expand from it, like with anything you do. You can't just, you can't paint a picture that's something in your mind if you don't know how to hold a paintbrush.
Gotcha.
Like, know how to stroke the paint appropriately to be able to get the thickness and the texture that you want.
Well said.
Yeah, and as we're talking here, something that I think about is, and I haven't even seen it yet, but the new 1917 movie. I'm sure you've so like the audio behind that.
Oh man.
Just because they're all wide shots, it's all supposed to be like a one take type of thing. I haven't seen too much of the behind the scenes, and I haven't even seen the film yet to appreciate it in its entirety. But that's obviously a scenario. Like, what do you do in a scenario like that where they're breaking boundaries essentially just on the camera side of it? It's got to be wide shots, these amazing dynamic shots, people moving 24/7, and you're still capturing dialogue. You're still getting these like intimate moments between people, and it has to sound, so like. And maybe I'm throwing you a hard question.
No, you're not.
But I definitely because
Definitely
that's the sort of thing that it really makes my mind think. It really intrigues me as far as like, man, if I were in that position, how the hell would I pull that off?
I don't know how a lot of major production companies can pull stuff like that off. What I can tell you is that a lot of it is ADR, so done in a studio after the fact. Especially for things like 1917, I have seen videos online of just boom ops running everywhere, like poles fully extended. They're not even close to picking up any audio or anything. Like the big trench shot, that's in every like commercial and not commercial, but every trailer. You see the cameras just kind of roaming. I don't even know how they did that. If it was like on a truck or if it was on a jib of some sort, if it was drone, I don't know what it was. But where you see all the explosions happening on the side, you see the people running straight. There was the behind the scenes footage of that. There are people off camera with booms 30 feet in the air, at least is what it looked like from the angle. Like not even close to grabbing anything clean, but a lot of that would be for reference. Just to kind of hear what the people are, like the talent is saying. Maybe they're wearing lavs and it came up clean. I don't know, but I feel like with a lot of running, you hear a lot of the clothing, especially wearing Kevlar, which is a very noisy material. Probably wearing some type of like hard plastic underneath. especially with all the chains and stuff that are not really chains, but like rope and stuff.
Well, yeah, all the stuff.
Army
There's metal
attire,
stuff,
and that's all very noisy stuff and very sound muffling things. So whether or not they got clean lav sounds is beyond me. Maybe they rigged something to the helmet, like taped a lav underneath, and they wore the pack up here to make it somewhat clean.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it was funny to see Boom Ops just running.
I did see a little bit of that.
I don't know what the purpose of that was. It's probably for just nat sound. They have his reference to go into a studio and just do an ADR session, and once the cut has been made, they have at least some sound for reference. Then they just rebuild off of that. So
I jokingly think that like if only drones were completely silent. Like,
silent.
Just
oh my gosh!
Just the way that they'd incorporate audio and just fly drones around with mics.
That could work. Could be cool. Could be cool.
Yeah, exactly. Like it could be awesome. It could be disastrous. But
you never know until you try.
You see a lot of new stuff kind of coming into the arena, and not to jump into the tech side of it too much, but I see a lot of changes, a lot of advancements as tech gets better and smarter, and certain things you need to keep very standard and old-fashioned almost, and then other areas you have some room to kind of grow. But I mean, like with you, with the stuff you use, do you pay a lot of attention to anytime like new stuff is coming out, or do you tend to, like with audio, I know it doesn't change quite as much as I think it probably had a it's not the same as like new lenses, new cameras come out like every few months. In the audio world, it's way less, right? Yeah,
it's years before new stuff comes out. The science has been pretty nailed as far as good quality stuff versus bad quality, because there's not really much that needs to change. Maybe things getting a little more watertight, or waterproof. Maybe a little bit better consistency on wireless dropouts and static and interference. I mean, Sound Devices released 3 or 4 new recorders in the last 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
The last thing that was released after that, or the release before that, I think was like in 2006, 2007.
Oh, okay.
With the 6 series.
Once you get what you really need to do the job, you're pretty much good, like with the exception of obviously if it broke, or maybe you get more for redundancy, but as far as this is what I need, it's not like where, in the world of cameras, for example, like we're instantly jumping from 4K to 60K to 8K, and now more people are asking for that. Now I have to upgrade, even though I don't want to. Like in your world, it's like once you get what you... It's
pretty much there, yeah.
Yeah.
The newest big thing that happened at the end of last year was the first 32-bit recorder. From 24 bits to 32 bits. Basically, it's a resolution thing. And that was... Basically, that would give you dynamic range headroom-wise, so you're not clipping audio per se.
Okay.
You have to do a little bit of manipulation in post, but if you record it in 32 bits, you technically would have an unlimited gain headroom, essentially. So you can adjust the gain back down. You'll see it, like if you go in post, you'll see all the little spikes and stuff.
Right.
You'll see it looks like it's totally blown out, but if you adjust the gain back down, nothing's clipped. You're just overloading.
Okay.
It. So that's
almost like
simple,
raw,
cool
essentially, like kind of in the sense of like if some people are familiar like with raw, like a raw photo, a raw video, where it's almost like not you have way more.
Everything's there.
It's there. You just need to find it.
But with that being said, don't grab a recorder, turn the gain up all the way, and be like, we're good to go.
Right, exactly.
You still want to grab it clean.
Right,
because the more voltage you put into a mic, the more you're going to pick up. Rather than just moving a fader, you're just adjusting what's in front of you. The more gain you have, again, more voltage, you're going to get a little wider of a pickup pattern.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep in mind. It's subtle, but it's enough.
Yeah.
Every little increment, every percent of what you're trying to get rid of counts. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah. No, that's interesting, and again, not to get too technical into it because I know some people aren't in that, but it's always interesting to kind of know those types of things. Obviously, whatever you do, whether it's audio or the video side of it, you want to try and get it as correct as humanly possible, right there, like on set, on location, and then heaven forbid something's off a little bit, you have that leeway to kind of make some changes, but yeah, you know, to have the tech kind of advancing in a way that you do have that, where you can still do your job and do it to the best of your abilities, but every once in a while something might happen, and if you're safe in that, it's a little more peace of mind. But
yeah, I when you just said something might happen, I had a couple horror stories just pop into my head. We're not going to talk about this. We will not. That's.
I'm sure. Yeah, I was going to say. I'm sure you've had different things happen. But yeah, something that I did want to bring up that I had a few notes on, just for people listening or people watching, is just sort of, there's 4 different characteristics that I, just doing a little bit of discovery on my own here. There's some characteristics that I found as far as how sound can affect people, and I'm just going to read off of them quickly here, is that there's physiologically is one way that sound can affect people. The body's basically 70% water, so sound travels through water incredibly well. So certain ways that can affect somebody is increasing heart rate and breathing. Good example being like the sound of an explosion somewhere nearby. It can heighten your senses. It can change like how tense your muscles are. It can put you into that like fight or flight mode without having felt it, seen it, any other senses. You're just hearing it. It can do something. Another thing is psychologically is it can mentally change like mood, emotion. So music is a great example of this. And I know you're also a composer and you have a recording studio, so I know you can even touch base on this a little, but just that music can make you happy, sad, can make you scared, can make you calm, energized. Environmental sounds do the same. The sound of a beach or a rainforest storm. I do this every single night. I have rainstorm sounds play, and if I do not have it, I do not go to sleep. So, it totally affects me that way. A couple other things being cognitively, so certain sounds can help us work more efficiently or distract us. A lot of people say like I can't hear myself think, just that inner voice. Certain sounds can disrupt that. As far as like one thing I picked up on that was interesting was the human voice is the most distracting. So, like if you're in a really busy environment, it could be very hard. Like if you're trying to read or trying to write something down, it might be really hard because you're in an environment where there's a lot of people talking, which I thought was kind of interesting.
And I'm just gonna touch on that super fast because I want to.
No, go ahead. Please do.
Because it is. It really is. Because your brain is wired to have conversations with people, so it's the most natural thing to hear.
Yeah.
Besides breathing, that's one thing because it's right here. It's always in your head. But whenever you hear somebody else talk, your brain wants to respond to it, or you instantly want to try to eavesdrop or overhear. This is more the proper term, but your brain automatically goes there. So that's another reason why it can be so distracting. Because if you're trying to focus on one thing and someone's trying to talk, even if it's not to you, even if you catch a couple words here and there subliminally, and it's like, oh, that got my attention.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's like if it's like someone's talking about like sports and you really like sports and you're trying to write something about. Like you're just trying to write a letter. If people even still write letters to people, you're just writing like, "Grandma, today it's then you're like over here now, and then you kind of are trying to go back and forth.
Yeah.
Now you don't have your train of thought because
you can't just
natural.
turn it off.
Yeah.
Like you can't tune it out to a point where once it's piqued your interest, like that's it. Like pretty much like game over.
I wonder if like people that have hearing aids and they can actually like physically mute everything, I wonder if they have more focus than people that can hear everything and have
Quite
full control of
possibly.
their five
Quite
senses.
possibly. My wife would be a good
I
person to
I
ask.
definitely
She hasn't had hearing aids in a while, but yeah, when she did, you obviously can adjust them. So yeah, I could kind of like pick and choose. You
so
truly
annoying.
have selective hearing.
That must have been so annoying with like arguments. Like, I'm done with you for the rest
Yeah,
of the
I'm
day.
done.
I'm done.
That'd be like the ultimate mic drop. It's just like no more. I'm done.
Bye.
But yeah, no, I thought it was interesting reading that because I never thought of it that way, and you know so I'm one of those people. I have ADHD. Like I just have a hard time like with concentrating and focusing and everything. And when I was back when I was in college, I would have to take tests. Like I'd have to be approved to take tests in like a room by myself in order to do like a good job at it. If I was in a room like anywhere that people were talking, or even just the sound of like other people, like moving pencils or bags or anything, if I had to focus on something that was really intense, like a test, it was almost impossible, just because whatever sounds going into my ears like would just instantly
And also the
stop.
Psychological pressure of taking a test, because you have to remember stuff out of
exactly.
nowhere, because you have to go into a certain spot of your brain to figure that out. That's
Yeah.
even more pressure on top of it all.
Exactly.
So-
Exactly. But like even in just day-to-day experiences, I've kind of had it happen where, say I'm just in here, for example, working, and I'll come up with a thought like, oh man, that would be a really good idea or topic or whatever, and let me write that down in a second, and I'll have music playing or I'll have a YouTube video playing, and 5 seconds later, 10 seconds later, I grab the pen and I'll just be like,
Gone.
crap, like that's it, like it's gone.
Whereas happens to me all the time.
if
I'm
in
with ya.
yeah, whereas
I'm
like
with ya.
if I'm in an environment where I have nothing but just like silence in my own thoughts, that will it doesn't like kind of dissipate as fast. It's still there in your head. So it's just that's the kind of stuff that like I think is interesting, because you don't think about it day in day out, but even just changing your pattern of how you like what you do, how you live, where you are when you do certain things can increase or decrease your productivity and your mood just based off the sound environment. Just that atmosphere is really interesting. So
Yeah.
but the other one, that the fourth one being on this list, being that it's also behaviorally, that our behavior changes. So we either move away from unpleasant sounds, we move closer to pleasant sounds, and it's kind of going off what we just said, like in a noisy, annoying type of setting, we're going to tend to act less sociable. We're going to be a little bit more on edge, a little more moody, a little more short with people. Whereas in a calm, happy kind of environment and setting, we're going to be a little more patient. We're going to be a little more kind, a little more like laid back. So it's just, like there's so many different aspects, and yeah. I'm sure you deal with every single one of them.
Yeah. I don't want to say every one of them, but enough of them.
Yeah.
I don't know where to begin. Where do you want to start? Let's pick one of those off that list.
Yeah.
Let's see where it goes.
Well, I mean,
limited knowledge.
What some of the stuff here that I have that I guess we could kind of talk about is like the importance of soundtracks in films and commercials, or the importance of dynamic just like sound design. You were talking about sound design earlier. Work that it might not be captured there on set, but just actual design of different sound effects or different atmospheres, different dynamics in post. Another topic being professional sound in the Talking Head videos, which we covered a lot of. Radio broadcast, where there is no video at all. It's this is only radios. I'm sure like. Have you how much?
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, how much have you you sort of dived into that?
I have not done a lot of radio broadcast.
Okay.
But for the informational side of radio, it's a lot of it is your voice, your tone, and your speed of how you're talking, which will keep the listener engaged. Mm-hmm. If you're, it's almost like I can't think of who it is. Well, there's someone that wrote a book that's talking about like landing the deal, like a business meeting kind of thing. Your tone and the way you present everything can either have a client open up to you or shut down. Because if you're talking really fast and really not so clear, they don't want to try to piece everything together because there's other things in their head that they want to figure out. But if you're talking a normal pace to their vibe, because some people are very highly strung, some people are just very relaxed.
Right.
So if you can match their energy, they're more relatable to you. I'm going to come back to radio in a second. There's a reason why I'm saying this.
Yeah, no, this is good.
And then for the people psychologically that if you're trying to land a deal per se, and both of your energies are starting to get higher and higher, and you don't kill that, you're going to mentally hit it. One of you are going to mentally hit a cap, and then it's going to be full disconnect. No one's going to start thinking straight. No one's going to really be focused anymore. So if you can bring somebody in a meeting and just keep bringing their energy down with you, almost to a point if you can talk to them where they almost have to lean in a little bit to really listen to what they're saying, have them physically put that extra effort into listening to you, that's how you'll engage them. Now coming back to radio, if you're just talking informational, almost like a broadcast and saying, hey, the news today is, no, let's not even go there. Let's go traffic reports. Not many people want to hear traffic reports unless you are in that traffic, okay? So if you're just a general listener, it's all right.
It's the last thing you want to hear.
Yeah, it's okay, we're over here in Allentown. All right, the 76 going toward Philly, there's flooding, and then there's an accident up there, and then we're going to go over to southbound, doesn't even have to be around southbound. Eastbound on 422 is, there's a car pulled over, and there's a structure fire. It's all information you don't want to hear, and then you'll eventually tune them out, and you'll be like, oh no, go back to playing music or something like that.
Right.
But the reason why you would you will listen to that longer than normal is because of the way they're presenting it. So it's if they're happy and upbeat, if they're okay, and also word choice also is a big thing. But if I were to sit here and be all right, so the traffic down 76 is very slow. See, you already looked away.
Yeah.
You already were nope, that's it. But if I were to kind of be bubbly and a little more, you sense that.
Right.
And you kind of attach that a little more.
You can feel it through.
Yeah. And the content doesn't matter, but that's not your sole focus of the content. So for radio, people, not even talking sound design, it's all about the presentation of sound and the psychological way you talk, and you perceive that.
I can totally relate to that.
Yeah, that's huge for people in radio. So whenever you hear people say, oh, you have a great radio voice, they're either saying one of two things. That either you have a good consistent tone, you can speak clearly, or you have the right type of energy that's not overpowering, that's not boring, and just people can relate to that.
Just enough,
and it's just enough to grab you in.
Yeah. Is there advice you could give people with phone calls? Say people have to do
sales calls.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's
bring it more towards the agency. Yeah, let's
cold
do that.
call Yeah, because that's something that, I don't do it a ton now, but sometimes I will just make a straight up cold call to a client or potential client, and I know that depending on how I sound to them, they're going to decide if they want to hear more, less, if they're going to hang up on me, if they're interested. I'm invading their privacy. They probably don't care what I really have to say, but depending on how I say it and what I say, that's going to really determine how they react to it, because that's the only thing they're going off of is my voice.
Mm-hmm. So is it a cold call, or is it like a potential client, like it's like a warm lead? Or like, because you'd approach either one differently. So which one?
I would say talk a little about maybe if it's a straight up cold call, because I know some people that are listening to this or that are watching this, probably, whether it's in the creative industry or some other industry, they probably have to do it or will have to do it at some point in their life, and it's a terrifying thing. I definitely know.
And cold calls are the worst.
Yes,
because
they are.
There are way more things that can go wrong on a cold call than can go right.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly.
And anyone in sales, I'm looking directly into this camera. Anyone in sales, if you say otherwise, you are a liar. Carry on.
Yeah.
So there's way more that can go wrong than can go right. Right from the get-go. I even said this right when I walked in, like just surveying your awesome new studio, which again, by the way, looks really good. From the last time I was here, where there's just stuff everywhere because it's just moving in.
Yeah.
Just moving in. Now, like coming in and feeling the vibe, it's really awesome. But when I walked in, the psychological thing, you have 7 seconds and you evaluate everything, whether you like it or not. You're analyzing the light, the feel, the smell, how it makes you feel emotionally, if things are placed where, like if things stick out to you, if things make you feel uncomfortable, like all that, within 7 seconds. And then you make your assessment. So with people jumping into phone calls, most of the time, people don't even want to receive a phone call from someone selling them something. So right off the bat, you're already walking into a losing battle before you even dial a number.
Yep.
But, so when you make the call, and if they pick up, you want that, you want to be able to give them just enough information within 7 seconds where they can get a good vibe from you. Not over the top, like, hey, I'm calling from such and such insurance company, and I'm gonna. It's like, okay, boom. You already sound fake because you're trying to be happy. You're saying insurance, which is already most of the time something that people don't need.
Yeah.
So off the bat, you're already just most likely struck out unless you have that person that it's just the right time and they're just in the right mood. We're like, well, I need to switch car insurance, something like that.
And that's a really good point too. Not to cut you off, but like that's a super good point, because I think that's what happens if you don't do it professionally. People are, I'm worried that the way I sound isn't going to be excited or it's not going to be happy, so they'll overdo that. They'll sort of inflect like this like unreal amount of happiness into it.
And you can
to
tell
the
fake.
point. Right, yeah, where people will just see right through it.
You can tell fake in a happier sense easier than you can in a more depressive state. Because happy, excited, and energetic are all kind of the same, but if you kind of go more like laid back, it's like, oh, maybe he's just calm, maybe he's relaxed, maybe he's depressed, maybe he's anxious. Like there's so many things that can go with calm. That's beside the point.
Right.
Rather than happy. Because there's not so much more there's so many different feels with a happier tone.
You only reach a certain level where you're like, okay, this is
it's almost like this guy is over the top. And then for introverts, like that's it.
Yeah,
like,
forget it.
You already lost within the first 3 words. Like that's it. So you want to talk slow. When they first, one of my dad's friends that was in sales said something to me. I don't even know why a conversation was happening, but it was years ago. But it stuck with me. Whenever the person answers the phone, or whenever you talk with the people, pauses are more important than the words itself. So when they answer the phone, give them a second. Like, hello, wait a second, then start talking, rather than like, all right, we're going right in because I need as many calls and as much in as short time as possible and blah, blah, blah.
That's a good
then
point.
You're rushing.
That's a good point to make.
So it gives them a second to not only prep for the call, it also throws them for a second because people aren't responding immediately. So it mentally makes them listen a little bit more. It's like, do I hear background noise? Am I listening to, like, is there actually someone on the line? Am I waiting for a recording to happen?
Right.
So it gives them that second.
Because I think that sometimes if that happens, where I'm like, okay, like if there's a gap, it's you're waiting for the computer to kick in or something. But then if it turns out to be like a real person, I'm like, oh wow, okay, that's different. You know, like it's it's usually one or the other. It's a long gap and then a recording, or instant like, hey, I'm blah 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 blah, and this is what I'm selling, and it's an instant.
And that's the next point. Never right off the bat say what you want to do. So if you're selling insurance, for instance, no, let's make this way more entertaining of a scenario. If you're selling balloons,
this is good, man.
Let's say you're selling balloons.
Sales strategy was saying.
Let's sell balloons to people over the phone, okay? If you're you make the call, you wait for them to answer, give it a beep. Then it's like, all right, don't say, my name is such and such, I'm with such and such place, and we have this offer, because they're not looking for it, they don't want to hear it. So you want to talk at a normal pace, maybe a little quieter than you normally would, and then as you lock them in, then you can kind of ramp everything back up. But greet them. How's it going? My name is such and such. Then let them respond. Then it starts the conversation. Their guard's already dropped, and at that point, they probably already analyzed 5 seconds of this conversation. Between the pause, your initial start of the talk, and how you greeted them. Then I'll say, most people will engage with a greeting, like, I'm fine, how are you? And then, great. And then then ask them a follow-up question, like, is now a good time to talk? Can I have a moment of your time? That's going to either make them question why this random person is calling me, and make them really kind of throw up like boundaries, or it's just gonna make them hang up, or they'll actually engage. But because of you sort of not really invading them, that just instantly makes them like, okay, what's going on? Like,
you're asking for permission to invade their space right now.
Then now you have them. Now they analyzed everything, or maybe pique their interest, like, okay, what's really going on here? But even if that question, as negative as it sounds, like, okay, what's happening, they're engaged.
Right.
Then you can start talking about the reason for the call. So right there and then, because they went through their 7 seconds of analysis. Yeah. So that's just the way and then everything else after the sales, that's your creative way to make the pitch
it's a whole different story. Right.
Or to make the deal, or to present yourself and sell yourself. But you want to get them from. You don't want to blindside them. That's what I want to say. You don't want to blindside them.
Yeah.
Just be genuine.
Yeah, and I kind of do it. I mean, I probably don't do it to the greatest extent, but sometimes when I'll do these calls, I'll start off by just saying like, "Hey, how's your day so far?" And I'll instantly start off by asking them about how their day is. And it's funny because sometimes they'll go into a 5-minute talk about how their day is. Like they'll take you literally, and rather than, oh, it's good, how are you? It'll be like, oh, well, like I had one lady that was like, oh, well, we'll see depending on how the rest of the day goes. And I'll be like, oh, what do you mean? Like, how's it been going so far? And she went into like, didn't even know my name yet, and she went into this whole thing, and she ended up, we had like a 20-minute conversation, and she still wasn't interested, or she didn't have the ability to use our services at the time, but it was still like, by the time we were done, she was like, man, if I ever do, I'll hit you up. And I was like just calling because it's a cold call, but I left like, man, if I actually need what she does, I'm probably gonna think of her first now, just because it was an awesome conversation. Yeah, so it can lead different directions that, just based on a question like that.
And then the other thing, since calls, you don't have body language. So you're not able to see people's posture, you're not able to see the focus in their eyes, if there's actually focus, like looking at you, or if they're distracted looking around other places. You don't have that. So that's why it's really important for pacing right at the get-go. Because that's all you got.
Yeah.
They don't know what you look like.
Right.
They just know what you sound like, and they know your motive.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I thought it'd be good to sort of dig into that for a couple extra minutes, just because I know that's something that people do, and nobody wants to do it, but you have to do it at some point. Nobody likes doing it. Nobody likes being on the end that you're picking up the phone and being sold to, but it's something that there's an art to it, for sure.
Yeah, definitely an art.
Yeah, I mean, do you have other questions that the only other thing I was going to bring up was in terms of how it could be used, and we were talking about soundtracks. Music, we could talk about music.
Sound and production. Let's go back.
We could go back to that.
Bit.
Something that, so with Carlos being a web designer, he's an app developer, I think, it's important having sound in like apps. Nowadays, you think of not even just like games on phones, but things like just if you're sliding a button inside of an app to have like a little click sound or something that gives it almost a tactile sound to the reality, which is you're touching a piece of glass with a screen behind it. I think that the way that sound is added into that is really important. So I mean, I don't know. I know you were saying that there wasn't too much to dive into.
I understand the purpose of it, and that's to give people feedback on the interaction that just has taken place. But I actually don't have a whole lot of experience in that. But it sounds like you do, Sam. And do you mind talking a little bit about that?
A little. I don't have a ton of experience either.
Okay.
But what I can say is that with like software and stuff, it's first and foremost, it's not real reality.
Sure.
Like let's obviously let's throw that one out there. So you have to engage your five senses somehow.
Right.
And as many as possible.
Mm-hmm.
With software, taste is going to be a little weird, so let's not talk about that. But the sound side of it and the touch side of it are going to go hand in hand. Because you're holding a device that sitting by itself, like an iPhone, like it doesn't do anything.
Right.
With it on, with it off, it's just there. It's waiting for commands. So you start interacting with it, and you have the sensory feel of touch. The vibration, like if you're like touch an icon or whatever, and like have a little vibrating thing, that also helps keep you engaged, and it feels more real because there's more movement.
Right. Yeah, you just have the haptics.
And the sound side of things are going to complement the vibration side of the touch side of the device itself. Most people have their phones or devices off, like muted. I mean, not off.
Right.
So it doesn't really.
My wife's one of those people where I like it. I like knowing when things make sounds and whatnot. But my wife's one of those people who she 24/7 her phone's on mute. Like,
I'm one of those people as well. Sometimes my phone is on. Like I'll turn it off, get it off silent. Like if I'm going away from my phone, so I can hear the ringer. That's about it. But I normally don't hear like those happy, bubbly sounds as you're touching things. But I mean, it can help. It can help with the mood. I don't really know how psychologically. I don't know if it has something to do with like how you see color. Like color can give you certain moods based on its different shade. I don't know if there's a correlation. There probably is between like a blue icon and a little bing sound as opposed to a gray icon with a zzz sound. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's probably some correlation there in the touch, but what I can say the sound wise is that sound and touch both kind of merge. psychologically, and they pair off of each other. But as far as how it can affect your interaction with software, like on a phone, like mobile device per se, I don't really know too much there. But what I could say is in virtual reality, sound is everything in virtual reality, because we can control what we're looking at by spinning our body, moving our neck, and all that. But in virtual reality, there needs to be a 360-degree sound encompassing you at all times. Also needs to realize at what point you're looking at. So if you're moving and looking around and seeing the whole environment shift, and the sound isn't moving with that, that sound is going to be so fake, and your whole experience is ruined because nothing moves together like it does in the real world.
And you're mimicking reality. That's the whole point. Yeah, absolutely.
But that's the grander scheme of the software side of things. That's where sound is everything there.
Yeah, and we're obviously going that direction now with the more like virtual reality and 360 type of imagery. That's becoming more accessible to more people. You don't have to go to like a museum or something like that. You can just you could do it right there at your own home. So
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely amazing. I was not expecting it to happen so fast. Here we are, and it's the sound has to be part of it.
What's the thing? Is it an Oculus? Is that what it's called? You can put your phone into it and wear the fact that it's so compact and it has that type of power. It's always gonna blow my mind.
Oh yeah.
You know what's really cool is when you put it on you attach it to a drone. And then you're literally like POVing, flying a drone, like that's cool. I've seen it happen. I had a couple friends that do it.
Oh, like with the people that fly.
Yeah, it's like you're
with the FPV.
It's like you're inside of like a cockpit of like a fighter jet. And you're like just sitting on a couch.
Cool.
I have a friend who just got one.
That's
and wild. I think that would terrify me.
You see them like they're having like actual reactions, like they're flying, you know, and they're like moving around. And
I mean, you're going. Those drones go like what 60, 70 miles an hour. I was just talking.
Some of those racing drones go 100.
And it's like
there's like competitions and races and all.
And when you put that on, you're in it now. It's like you're the one that's flying. So if you crash into something, like your body's gonna expect that to actually happen.
I gotta make some phone calls and rent a drone. That's something I gotta do.
That's a very interesting world too, and I don't even know how sound really is in that yet. But
that will make I don't know at those speeds. All I know, it'll probably make people more nauseous because the sound has to be moving very fast. Your eyes are able to perceive it as one thing. It'll probably be more of a motion blur. But if you have both your eyes and your ears kind of moving, that's like a whole other science.
Those are those crazy Disney experiences. Then like if you go to Disney and you get those rides.
I'm like intrigued right now. My brain is like, I wonder what if that happens or what if this happens. Thank you for saying that. Because I would never I've never thought of like, hey, let's sit on a couch and have someone fly a drone like somewhere else and just not be moving, but everything else is at like high speeds and intensities.
Yeah.
See, I gotta relax. So I'm getting really hyped up.
Corners around trees and try not to hit squirrels while you're going through trees and stuff.
Oh, that's me driving on a daily basis. So, that's not new. That's not new.
Well, the other topic that I wanted to talk about, and we were gonna have our photographer Jack in. He's also a musician, and he wasn't able to make it. Shame on you, Jack. No, I'm just kidding.
Shame on you.
Where you at, Jack?
Wherever he is.
At IKEA with his
girlfriend. I don't know where they.
Missing this.
But I mean, you have a recording studio, and not to take up too much time on this, but to just sort of briefly talk about music. That's something that like. Oh boy. I know, and that's why I said. That's why I was like briefly, because I know that could be a whole nother topic for another day. But I think of like certain types of sounds and music that are used in a horror film, as opposed to like a Transformers Michael Bay crazy action film. You know what I mean? Like those types of the differences with the music, the differences with obviously genres, like different genres of music. That whole experiment of plants listening to classical versus metal, which I disagree with the plants because I love metal, but either way, you know,
Same.
like.
Same.
But yeah, I mean, what like how would you say, just with your experience, like very generalistic experience of working with different artists, working with different musicians, even like you compose music too,
I
right?
do.
So maybe even touch base on that even more, like about composing music for. I know that's it's
wow.
a
How do I keep this brief?
it's a beefy topic to unload, but I think
Yeah.
you know, just sort of well maybe just stick with the compositions. Like if someone's hitting you up with a commercial, hey, I have this awesome commercial I shot. You know, it's got to be, you know, 60-second long commercial. It's, you know, this. What goes in your process when you have to make something out of scratch, where you're composing music that fits a certain
I always
visual?
write to picture. So there are some people that are just writing in general and then like, hey, I see this commercial or see this scene is like, I wrote this a while ago and it could fit to this. I'm the type of person that'll be like, no, give me the picture first and then see the way it's cut and then try to match the beats of the cut to match the picture. So it has a little more, it's more in sync, a more connected feeling than content. Like, is it a commercial that's an upbeat commercial? Is it, actually let's stick in the commercial world. Like, is it something for like KFC? Is it something for SPCA? Like, I'm never gonna put this upbeat music for, you know, here's our new chicken bowl, and then, you know, and then you see a cat crying.
Right.
Like,
I was gonna
really
say
dog,
save these kittens
that
today.
like that doesn't fit. So the content helps, and then going to just the psychological effects of keys of music. Major versus minor keys are always going to be a huge emotional, connection.
Just like
connection,
factors,
like
yeah.
with emotions. Because major usually is going to be more on the happier side, and 9 times out of 10, minor is going to be more sad or relaxed. Some people can flip those emotions around, but naturally that's just kind of how they roll.
Yeah.
But making those keys kind of feel the opposite way is beyond me. I don't know how people can do that. That's the whole different side of the music arts that I'm probably never gonna have. And that's fine. But
Yeah.
so, but anyway, writing for that. Then I gotta think instrumentation. Is it gonna kind of feel more? Is it gonna feel more jazzy? Is it gonna be more like flowy sound, a flowy feeling? So I'm not gonna, you know, have a fast drum beat with something that's really flowing, like a lot of strings and stuff, and then just have this nice like rock beat in the background. That doesn't make sense. So now I'm starting to kind of go off in like left field now, but anyway, that's kind of the way I would approach it. There's just so many variables.
Yeah.
But as far as
And you touched
that,
It seems like
about
you
it.
do so much, and they're all so, it seems to me, very different. But I mean, they're all related in through sound. But so my question is, what's your favorite aspect of recording sound? You do
Ooh, gonna put him on the spot here.
Oh God!
You have to pick one.
I
Or
have
maybe,
to pick one.
You slowly
I
disappear.
won't be that mean. I won't make you pick one.
No.
Well,
Let's
maybe
do
talk
that.
about all the
Let's do
different
that.
aspects and what you like of each one, and
That's a good question.
That is a good question. It's a lot to think about.
because you're on set, and then you're in a studio environment, and then you're thinking the whole like psychology of people's thoughts and experiences and different scenario. I'm just hearing you talk about it. It's so interesting, and you do so much stuff. So, what's your favorite?
From the experience side, like experiences of actually doing a project. I do like being on location more because it involves a lot of travel to different places, different type of content, usually different groups of people. So you have that networking opportunity there, and everyone thinks differently. Because doing sound can sometimes be a lonely type of job. It's usually a one, maybe two-person crew. Whereas you have the film department, the lighting department, grips department, and like PAs running.
We take over the world.
You have a bunch of groups, and there's just usually the one, maybe two sound people if you're lucky. But
not doing anything right.
Yeah, exactly. Not doing anything. Doing anything, but also doing everything. You're catching on. I like that. But anyway, that's insulting. Anyway, that's insulting.
I wouldn't even know where to begin.
But anyway, I say that was an insult to you, not to myself. But that's just a weird thing to say. Anyway, carrying on. We'll cut that from the tape. Scratch that from the record. But anyway. Is it hot in here? But no, I do like the on location side of things because again, it's so many different. It's just different, and it keeps me fresh thinking because sometimes you can walk into a room and everything's good to go. Sometimes it's total chaos. Right. Sometimes you have to reach into like old textbook style mentality. It's like, okay, I remember learning this in school. Like now I get to apply it 5 or 6 years later or something like that. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot about this. Like that stuff kind of happens. But my passion is in music. Like the creative side of music. I like that the aspect of working with an artist. It's like, hey, I have this. Whether it's perfect from start to finish or it's like, hey, can we mold it a little more? Like, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And then like the post-production like mix of that, slight manipulations of sounds to make things sound better, or getting really creative in the music side of things, like making things sound like either very lo-fi or very hi-fi, just for vibes. Like there's more creativity in the music side than the location shooting.
Sure, makes sense.
So, but that's not really so much the sound side of things. That's more of the music creative. It can be sound, but that's more music creative that I thoroughly enjoy. But yeah, if we're just thinking sound as a whole and just like kind of general, I love being on set. Location, not really so much sound design, post-production stuff.
And I've seen you switch over to a lot of that. Because I remember when I first met you, I think you were doing a lot of studio work for the most part. And Jack and I were even talking about this one day where it's like he was like ecstatic to see that you were doing more on location, like set kind of work, because he was like, yeah, that's like his calling. He's really good at it. He has more fun. And he was glad that like we started to do it around this, the same time, like, bringing you out to some stuff, and you brought us out to stuff. And like, I've seen you grow a lot in terms of like how much you're doing. Like you seem to always be in some state doing audio for some film or something. So
yeah, and I see you're killing it too. So
like we've definitely grown as far as like the work we're doing, but you're definitely doing a lot more than when we first met in terms of like locational set work, which is awesome because I think that obviously you're really good at it, and to see you doing like a lot of these bigger jobs and stuff is super fantastic. So
it's definitely been a blessing.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm sure like the airport aside, that whole thing, I know how that can be on our end, so I can only imagine. But I want to backtrack to what we were saying real quick with music and matching it with video. It's interesting because kind of everything you were saying, I do the opposite of that because I don't compose. I'm taking something that's already made, and I can go on to a site like MusicBed, for example, pick out a perfect song for whatever it is I filmed. I know what I filmed. I know how I'm going to edit. I know how I need the audio to sound as far as like tempo, what type of instruments, et cetera, et cetera. But when I'm there actually editing, the beat, you were saying, like, you know, making something that fits with the beat of the video. A lot of times I'll drop like a first clip on, and then I'll add that track, and then I'll add the rest of the content, and I'll actually
kind of cut it,
edit to the song, because I don't have the luxury of changing the song. So it's like,
ew.
Yeah,
that's a weird.
It's like I have to, like, I know it'll work because I know I got the right song for the video, but in a lot of senses, like, I'm actually making the video sort of
fit,
almost like fit to the song, or it's like the song becomes the primary thing that has the final say. So it's kind of just interesting that difference.
That is totally opposite. Like,
because you have control.
Sound should always.
Who's speaking of which?
Okay. Was it me?
It's not us.
The thing with sound in every aspect is that if there's anything else that sound's being added to, and I say added to because that's literally what it is, picture should be the primary, and then light and everything else. Try that again. Sound should just be complementing everything else, either anchoring everything in place or complementing it to make it better. So hearing you say that here's the song and you're editing to the song.
Yeah, to the song.
That is...
Yeah.
That's unheard of to me.
Yeah, and it's funny because, like, I have to do that. Otherwise, I'd have to create the song every time for each client, which in a lot of senses, like, smaller clients can't afford to have, you know, like a custom composition where I can cut the perfect thing together to my heart's extent, and then say, hey, I'm going to send this off to you. Now can you make a song for it? A lot of times clients don't have that in their budget, so they'll just say, hey, here's like what our brand is, here's the vibe we need to get across in terms of style and sound and everything, and then I'll just I'll find, you know, one of like thousands of tracks. So I'll spend hours listening to tracks for a specific video.
Power to you.
Because it's like,
I can't do that.
It's hard.
I'd probably go for 10 minutes and be like, I'm done with this. I'm making this on my own.
Yeah.
Like, I'm better than all of this.
But you have that. You have that ability. You know what I mean?
Wow.
But yeah, it can be tough.
I have that ability. You are right. But I don't have that mentality.
He's like perplexed. Like,
I don't know. I don't have that mentality. No, it's literally, I'm like trying to work this backwards. Yes, I have the ability, but I don't have the mentality to think of an edit like that. If someone's sending me something to edit or like mix or whatever, it's usually a picture lock. Like, here it is. So like, this is what we have.
Yeah, it's done.
Go. Like, you do your thing. Like that's it. So the fact that you go the other way for the picture side.
Yeah.
That's there's a disconnect.
It's definitely not easy. That's for sure.
No, I can't. I can only think so far back in reverse. And it's like, nope, you lost me. Yeah. I mean, yes, I have the ability, and yes, you have ability to do certain things too. But the fact that you have the mentality and the patience to be able to make the edit happen like that.
Because like I'll shoot to edit, so like I'll shoot knowing how I want to edit, but like where each cut happens and how each scene falls into place ultimately has to jive well with the music I pick. So so like I have to obviously figure out like what track's gonna work well with this, and a lot of times I won't know until after I've shot, and then I have to find a track.
Hold on. So you're saying you've already like picked out music sort of before you even start shooting?
No, vice versa.
Okay, I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I'm about to get up and walk out, be like, I'm done with you. I can't do that.
That would be impossible. No, I pretty much shoot knowing kind of how I want to edit, and then afterwards I'll dump the footage. Then I'll know what the footage is. I know what the edit's kind of gonna look like, and then I'll go on one of those art lists or music bed. I'll find a track that sort of fits it.
Are you shooting to a song?
No,
hell
no.
Okay.
No, obviously unless it's a music video. But
well, yeah, that's
the only exception.
But I thought you were like, yeah, here's this pre-made track. All right, let's go film this commercial.
Yeah, I memorize it.
It's like, dude,
I just walk around. I'll listen to it while I'm filming.
You are out of your mind. Like, I know a good doctor that could put you on some stuff. That
would be like some Jesus level stuff.
That's sheer insanity.
Yeah, no, that's a
Thank
whole different.
Thank you for clarifying that.
That's a whole different world that I hope nobody does that.
If you do, email one of us.
If you do,
please, I want to talk with you.
Let us know, and then please stop and get a counselor.
No, talk.
But
send one of us an email. Then stop.
We'll pay for your counseling.
Yes, and I want to pick your brain. That'd be wild.
Yeah, no, but yeah, typically, in almost every type of work I do, it's so micro budget or small budget that it's just the money's not there to do a custom composition, and so it's like you're left with that having to find the genre and the right sound, and whether it's upbeat and like a game day kind of like we're gonna go out there, or if it's like a very slow cinematic thing, whatever it is, it depends on the video obviously, but yeah, a lot of times that kind of becomes the secondary thing or the last thing that I grab, but it instantly gets dropped into the project and becomes the primary thing that has control over the way that the cuts take place, and sometimes even the duration. Usually not. Usually that's locked in.
I was about to be like, do you want to really put another constraint on yourself?
Yeah, no. If it's something like a real estate video where there is no duration limit or something, sometimes I'll end it a little bit longer or a little bit shorter based on where that song ends, and rather than sort of making the song longer and re-editing the song, it's easier to just do it that way. But yeah, a lot of times, obviously, there's a limit on the video.
Yeah, that's weird to me, man. Like, because normally if the client's like, 45, 60 seconds, or something like that, like, be in that ballpark. That's, in my mind, the only constraint that kind of should be there. But when you're like, here's the music, all right, let me edit to that. And then now all the other things you just said, I'm like, there's so many, you just set up so many constraints for yourself, and yet you still make it work pretty well.
Yeah.
It's like, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it definitely, it takes a little time, but... not to get into the technical side of it, but yeah, there's definitely ways that you can almost like key mark certain sections of a song so that as you're editing the footage, okay, at this point, this has to happen footage-wise. So now I know how long, or where I need to cut things in place. So you can kind of give yourself visual cues based on the song once you know what the song is, but it's definitely tough in that sense that the footage has to sort of like bow down to the track rather than vice versa. But yeah, it's interesting. It's always fun.
Yeah, I'm like in a zone.
Sam's over there, his face is about to melt, and just contemplation.
I'm thinking about that train of thought, and on camera it probably looks like I'm mad. I'm not. I'm focused.
But you can just tell you're thinking really hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. I know a lot of people that edit that way. Obviously, if you have the budget, if you have the ability to do a custom composition based on your project, that's the way to go, and you should always do it that way. But I think it's obviously the most important thing is to have something. Like if you don't have that, find a way to incorporate some sort of music that's going to fit. Even if you can't incorporate that, because kind of tying this back into what we said at the start, it's like 50%, 60% of a finished video is the audio, and so you have to be able to somehow incorporate that in a way that it's engaging, it matches the piece, and it fits the audience. It's gotta appeal to the audience. This has been awesome. This has been a really good conversation. I think we obviously covered a lot, and this is just a really good intro into what I'm sure could turn into a masterclass if we allowed it to.
Oh boy.
I'm sure it could
be
go
down for
hours long.
I would be down for that.
But yeah, I don't, do you have other questions or anything else you can think of?
I mean, yeah, I've got like 100 questions, but
Yeah, that's
We'll have to
have
have
for
you-
another time.
We'll
Love
definitely
beer.
have to do this again. Just to wrap this up with the podcast and the broadcast here, Sam, where can people find you online? If they want to hire you, if they want to reach out to you for work, how do people best find you and or your work that you've done?
You can find me. My name is Sam Pappagallo. My company name is called Screaming Parrot Studios. You can find me on www.screamingparrotstudios.com. You can on the website there are samples of my work, previous work. That's redundant. My a page of where you can reach out to me via email. My phone number is on there as well. You can book by phone is preferred. If you want to send an email, if you're that type of person, you can do that as well. You can also find me on Instagram at Screaming Parrot Studios, Facebook at Screaming Parrot Studios, and I'm trying to get my Twitter back up and running, so that's also at Screaming Parrot Studios.
There you go.
Awesome.
Bring consistency.
Yeah,
right?
it's consistency. Apparently no one has it. Actually, scratch that. Quick story. Someone had, when I was first getting the website done, someone actually had screamingparrotstudios.com.
Oh.
They were using it as a forwarding for like a truck company.
Oh my god.
As a trucking company. I don't know
That doesn't
why.
even make sense.
It doesn't make sense. But for like
Their
2
trucks
years,
called parrots or something?
we're about to get to that. We're about to get to that. For 2 years, I had screamingparrotstudios.net. Because that's all that was really available, and the other ones, the other endings are just weird to me. But then they finally let go, or they put the domain up for sale, and I gave the guy $5, and he's like, "All right, fine, I don't even."
Oh
use
wow,
it.
No
$5.
way.
Yeah, and he's
That's
like, "All
awesome.
right," and he's like, "All right, you can have it." I'm like,
That's
"Yes."
awesome.
Well, I did some more research on the company. I'm not going to say the name of the company, but their logo is, or was, very similar to my old logo back in the day.
Okay.
The only things that were different were the color scheme, the amount of feathers kind of tailing off, and they had a circle around it. And I talked to him, I was like, "Hey, where did you get this?" He said, "Oh, I just found some clip art online." And I was like, "Some clip art? Like, how long have you had the logo for?" They're like, "Oh, we're a relatively new company. We had it for about a year or so." I'm like, "Oh, well, I've been in business for 4 years. Look at my logo and look at your logo. Like, who designed it?" And he's like, "Well, we just did some like automated thing online or whatever for logo design." I'm like, "This is fairly similar to mine." And I was like, "Okay, well, which is gonna happen? Am I changing mine or are you changing yours?" Like, "Well, mine's all on trucks and stuff." And I was like, "All right, I'll change mine." So I did some minor tweaks to mine, which is now what the logo is now.
Yeah.
Now it's all like trademarked and protected and everything. So, but before it was like really, really close.
Yeah.
It's like seeing it on.
But it's not like they saw it
like
and
Google
and took
images
it.
online of like a fleet of trucks. I'm like, "Ooh, this is gonna get dicey."
Yeah.
But luckily the guy was like really cool and we just talked
Yeah.
to him. But it was like,
And just the fact you got the
it.
URL for $5, I mean, that's
That
like
was cool too.
That's unheard of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now.
and I think it was because I was like, "All right, I'll change my logo," and then he was like, "All right."
Yeah,
I think it was more of like a gesture. So,
Yeah.
so thank you.
Yeah. Which probably did. I mean, that probably ended up saving you far more than the other way around. If you had
Buy it
to,
out and all that.
right.
I've heard horror stories of people buying like domains for $600-700.
Oh my gosh,
Buy it
that's
off of
cheap.
people.
That's cheap.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
$1 million, man.
There've been when we when we rebranded.
Like $500-600, like you're out of your mind just to get that.
Yeah.
Current.com. That's the name of my business, Current Web Services. I was trying to buy Current.com. That was $1 million.
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
No.
Wow. See, I'm so blind to all that other stuff. I'm like, I'm just gonna stick with what I know, and that sounds.
Well, when we
that's so
rebranded
nice.
here, we came down to I think about 3 or 4 different names, and a lot of them got turned down. We actually stopped pursuing those rebranded names because we would look at what are you know, we had a set list of like, okay, these are the only options that we'll take for URLs. And we'd look at them and they either wouldn't be available or they would be available, but they wanted $10,000, $20,000, $40,000, $60,000 for, or even on the low end, maybe like $4,000 or $5,000 for the URLs. And yeah, and we were just like,
so maybe the couple $100 aren't horror stories.
No,
wow, that's
no,
okay.
no, not
that
at
shows
all.
how little I know.
People will go and they'll buy like 1,000 one-worded.coms.
yeah, and they'll sit
and
on
they'll
them.
hold on to them for like a decade, and then they'll sell them off one by one for like thousands or tens of thousands. Or
So basically, like,
depends how.
So basically, I have a new side hustle now. Is what I'm
if you have the money,
You
yeah.
have the money to do it.
Not, but I'm gonna try. I'm going to try.
Because like people will buy like,
There's
you
a
know,
$10 a year annual registration fee as well. So it's a
no,
little bit of an
$10.
upkeep.
well, but if
you
you
buy
sell
$1,000.
if you sell
Yeah.
one though, yeah, if you sell one, you know, like people will jump the gun on things they think are gonna become popular. So like, I think that happened with Justin Bieber. Like I think somebody bought like JustinBieber.com when he was still a kid, and then when he blew up, you either buy it or you don't.
Yep.
And like the owner can say, okay, this is my price, and you either say yes and you get it, or you say no and you don't get it. So people will do that, and they'll kind of just sit on
They do
it.
a lot for politicians.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so dirty, but that's genius.
Yeah.
Like Hillary
That's
just business.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on to it.
You really have to be able to kind of see well into the future, like what's happening.
Kind of like kidnapping because it's like
Yeah.
In a sense, yeah.
Yeah.
ransom.
You can
It
overthrow
is. It
the entire team.
definitely is. But yeah, that's a whole business within itself, and there's a lot that can happen there. But yeah. Anyways,
So you got really lucky, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steal.
yes,
Okay.
going back to that. But yeah, if people do want to find you, it's pretty much just Screaming
Parrot
Studios,
Yeah.
and that'll take
All
them
one word, all
all
connected.
okay. So that'll direct them to what they need to find, and as everybody already knows, you can find us at Structure PA, pretty much all throughout. Carlos, just another for people who didn't watch the last time, listening to the podcast for the first time, to reach out to you because you have your own business as well.
Well,
So
if you want to
how can they
find me
you?
on Instagram, it's los.ringo. That's my personal one. And then my website, it's still being finished, but it is up and live. That's current.ws. It stands for web services. So,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
There you go. So that's pretty much it. Thank you so much, guys, for listening to our first podcast and second recording. Feel free to reach out to us at hello@structurepa.com if you'd like to be on our podcast. And feel free to reach out to Sam as well as Carlos and check out what they're doing. They have a lot of really fantastic content and are definitely worth taking a moment to check out. Thanks again so much, and keep an eye out for the next one. This has been the Stormcraft podcast by Structure Advertising and Creative Agency in Allentown, PA.